Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. And don't forget to check out the Swag Cave. That link is in the podcast description. Resonance Branding Company, the official swag provider for the podcast. Packers, Vikings. That's the topic at hand for this episode of the podcast. So, let's just jump right into it. Packers taking on the Vikings this weekend. Sunday, Lambeau Field. Key matchups, keys to victory, predictions, all that fun stuff. Let's break it down here, all right? So, obviously, we know Minnesota's off to a great start, 3-0. Coming off of two very impressive wins. San Francisco, Texans last week. Defense has been playing lights out for Minnesota. 5 sacks in each game. Sam Darnold, in my opinion, is the leader in the clubhouse right now for comeback player of the year. So, flip side, Green Bay, we know, has been playing without Jordan Love the last couple weeks. Malik Willis, playing really well. Defense, playing really well here too. So, looking at this game in terms of some key matchups / keys to victory here. Sam Darnold has been a very good quarterback when he's been blitzed. Okay? You're talking about a perfect quarterback rating right now when it's come to Sam Darnold getting blitzed out there. So, I'm curious to see in what Jeff Hafley's game plan is going to be heading into this game, because the first 3 weeks, I feel like he's had to have 3 different game plans to prepare for those quarterbacks. I feel like he's kind of had to do that. And, you know, because Jalen Hurts, mobile quarterback, but we know, he could be a pretty darn good quarterback out there too, right? He can make plays. He's got weapons and all that stuff. Then you had Richardson in week 2, another mobile quarterback, does have a big arm, big play threat out there with his arm and such. And then yet last week against Will Levis, we talked about, numbers-wise, dude was getting blitzed, over 50% of his time. And what does Green Bay do? They kind of unleash the pass rush over there and come away with 8 sacks. So Sam Darnold, I think, it presents a little bit of a different challenge right now, if you will. A little bit of a different obstacle here. So to me, it's going to be interesting to see how Jeff Hafley comes up with this particular game plan to try to slow down and stop Sam Darnold. Now, one thing too, when it's come to Sam Darnold here, so overall too, and this kind of relates to the Vikings offensive line. According to Pro Football Focus, the Vikings rank near the bottom. Talking about 29th in pass blocking efficiency. Okay, and Sam Darnold has been under pressure, this is according to Zach Cruz, under pressure on almost 40% of the dropbacks, of his dropbacks. What this tells me, and Garrett Bradbury, center, not, he's struggled a little bit too, in terms of pass blocking and such. But what this tells me, and this kind of goes to what a lot of people right now are questioning or maybe have a little concern about is this has got to be a game for Kenny Clark. This has got to be a game for Kenny Clark. This has got to be a game for Devontae Wyatt. But I think a lot of Packers fans want to see Kenny Clark go out there and kind of almost have his coming out party for the season. Because a couple weeks ago, we did a little, analyze that Tuesday. And we took a look at, Kenny Clark, because it seemed like he was pretty quiet. And when we did it, it's like, okay, yeah, he's getting double-teamed still. He's still getting double-teamed on some plays. And then the plays that he wasn't, it was like he was a little over pursuing there a little bit. Kenny Clark, I think it's fair to say, it's fair to say he's not having an amazing start to the season, a really solid start, a really good start to the season. Does the double teams factor into it? Yes, they factor into it. But overall, and I don't want to speak for Kenny, but I think overall, is he making the impact that I think a lot of us were hoping, expecting to within this new style of defense? No, he's not. But he's got a chance in this game against Minnesota, to make that impact. And I think that's going to be a key too, because if Sam Darnold is so good against teams who blitz against him, we're talking five or more guys. I mean, that's a ridiculously good, I mean, you can't get any better with that passer rating. So what's the way then to put that? You got to win home at your four got to get home. Your four down linemen consistently have to get home. And they consistently have to put that pressure on Sam Darnold. And it starts with Kenny Clark. It starts with Devontae Wyatt. Getting the pressure up the middle. Not allowing him to step up. I want Sam Darnold backpedaling. Okay? I want him backpedaling. I don't want him, stepping up and extending the play and trying to find Justin Jefferson or even Aaron Jones for a little dink-dunk pass. The big boys, the trenches up front, this Packers defensive front, has to get home without bringing extra blitzers. Consistently putting that pressure on Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's been playing great this year. You can't take that away from him. But I want to see 97. I want to see Kenny Clark go out there and dominate against Garrett Bradbury. He's had good success against him in the past. Let's see it again on Sunday. Devontae Wyatt's been having a good season. 3 sacks already. We were hoping a third-year guy out of Georgia would make that leap this year, and so far, he looks pretty good. It's about time for Kenny Clark, though, to join that fray. And to be that defensive lineman that we're all expecting. Remember, dude got a new contract before the season started, too. It's time to kind of show the worth. I don't want to over-exaggerate too much on Kenny Clark and say, oh, what a bummer. It's not what I'm trying to do. But I think it's fair to say that we want a little more. We want a little more right now. We want to see a little bit more of a dominant performance from Clark right now. So that's one of the main key matchups I'm looking for in this game. Let's stay with the Packers defense here. Aaron Jones. I mean, let's just go right at it right away. Aaron Jones so far this year, 228 yards rushing. He's averaging 5.4 yards per carry. I know, Green Bay knows, everybody knows. Aaron Jones wants to have himself a career day. And, whenever Green Bay would go down to Dallas, right? Go down to Aaron Jones's home state of Texas, it felt like every time Green Bay played Dallas, Aaron Jones just had this extra gear in him, playing in front of his friends, family, his home state and such. I got to imagine Aaron Jones is going to be looking for that same gear going back to Lambeau. So be ready. I mean, Quay Walker and your Isaiah McDuffie, these linebackers, if it's your job, if it's your role to help slow down Aaron Jones, buckle up and tighten up those chin straps, because you know you're going to get over 100% effort from that guy. You know it's going to happen. So if Aaron Jones gets past the first level into that second level of the defense, these linebackers better bring him down. Don't let him continue to get some confidence throughout the whole game. And I hate saying this about Aaron Jones because I love that guy, but I can't like him for 3 hours on Sunday. Just don't let him take over Lambeau. Don't. And you know his teammates too would love nothing more than to help Aaron Jones have a career day going back to Green Bay. So again, you got to slow down Aaron Jones. You just have to. You have to. All right? And obviously we know, receiving-wise, a lot of it is going to be on Justin Jefferson. The whole Justin Jefferson, Jair Alexander matchup. That's going to be talked about. The other part, though, is Jordan Addison. Let's not forget about Jordan Addison. He says he'll play against Green Bay. So Jordan said he's going to play against Green Bay. He hasn't played the last couple weeks, but he plans on making his return. So I don't know if how football shape wise he's going to be or anything like that. But Jordan Addison had himself a game against Green Bay last year too. So I mean, this is a talented young wide receiver. So while JJ will have a ton of the attention on him and a ton of the talk over there too, don't forget about the second-year man, Jordan Addison, number 3 in your programs. Whether that's Eric Stokes, whether that's Keyshawn Nixon, whether that's Jair, I don't care. You got to account for him too. Justin's gonna demand a lot of attention, and rightfully so. But if Jordan Addison's all cleared and ready to go, and no holding back, no snap count or anything like that, that dude's a player too, and you got to be prepared for him. So, defensively for Green Bay, I think what a lot of it comes down to is making sure you're getting home with your front four. Rashawn Gary, Preston, Van Ness, Enagbare, but especially Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt, bringing that pressure up the middle. And not allowing Sam Darnold to sit back there for 4-5 seconds to pick apart your defense. There's that constant collapsing of the pockets. And not allowing Justin Jefferson to hit on big plays. Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones and such, limiting big plays. When we look at some of the numbers here for offensively, and let's just kind of break it down offensively and defensively here too, if it's going to actually load up for me. I thought I had it up here. But when we look at what Minnesota has done so far, if we just kind of take a look at Minnesota here first in terms of stats and such. So offensively, I mean, give Kevin O'Connell a ton of credit here too for the job he has done. But offensively, Minnesota is just outside top 10, a little bit of inside the middle of the pack here. They're averaging 329.7 yards per game. To put it in perspective, Green Bay is 5th. They're 391.7. If we break it down by passing yards, Minnesota is averaging about 204.7 passing yards per game. Rushing yards per game, when we look at Minnesota, middle of the pack again, about $125. $125. But Minnesota is capitalizing. So you're like, oh, those passing, yards numbers, those rushing yards, Nothing to really, write home about. They're not top 5, top 2, or that. You know where they are top 3, though? Points per game. That's the only thing that matters. Points per game. They're third best, third highest, 28.3 points per game. They're making their drives count. They're making their possessions count. Now, defensively for the Vikings here, in terms of yards, again, about middle of the pack here. They're giving about 310 on total yards, 310.7. Green Bay in comparison, 328.3. Passing yards allowed per game. If we take a look at that, Minnesota comes in. Where are they at on here? So they're they're about bottom third here. They're giving up 239.3 yards per game through the air. And then when you go to rushing yards, Minnesota second best. The only team higher than them is Baltimore. Baltimore's only given up 50 yards on the ground. Minnesota is only giving up 71.3 yards per ground. Points per game, Minnesota, second best defense, giving up just 10 points per game defensively. This is why I think there's been a lot of hope and optimism that Jordan Love would come back for this game, because we know Minnesota's pretty darn solid thus far, so far this year, at stopping the run, at slowing down the run. And Green Bay has really done a fantastic job the last couple weeks at running the football with Malik Willis at quarterback. Now, obviously they ran the ball for a crap ton more against the Colts than they did against the Tennessee Titans. Malik Willis had to throw a little bit. We knew that he had to throw a little bit more. He did that. They were successful with that. But I think, when you look at this game against Minnesota, this is where that optimism or that hope is that Jordan Love can come back, because then you have a little bit more of a passing game. And that's, again, where I kind of go, leads into some more key matchups in this thing, is I'm going to operate under the assumption that Jordan Love is going to play in this game. Now, even with Jordan Love playing in this game, Green Bay has to protect that man. Minnesota has had 5 sacks in 3 straight games. Okay? They've gotten after the quarterback. They've been doing a good job of getting after the quarterback. So, with Jordan Love back there, he wasn't the most, he'll pick up some yards with his legs if he has to, but he's not, a guy, he's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not an Anthony Richardson. He's not that type of quarterback. So, he won't be changing his game too much. But you can't allow Jordan Love to take 5 sacks in this game. And you can't allow him to get beat up. You just can't. So the offensive line, going up against this 3-4 defense, going up against Brian Flores' unit, I know he's a Badger, but Andrew Van Ginkel can't go out there and have himself a game at Lambeau Field. The guy's got 3 sacks so far this year. You can't let him go out there and do it. You can't let Jonathan Greenard go out there and have himself a game. He's got 4 sacks so far this year. The Packers' offensive line has to know where those 2 guys are at all times and make sure they're up to the task. Zach Tom, I'm not worried about it too much. Walker, let's go, man. Okay? For the most part, the Packers' offensive line has done a decent job at allowing pressures. They have. But here's a big test going up against a team that has been racking up the sacks so far this year. And when you got your quarterback hopefully making his return, he's going to have a brace on that knee. Let's not have any dirt on him. Let's not have any grass stains on him, okay? Let's not have any turf on his face mask or anything. This is a game for the offensive line for the Packers to protect Jordan Love. Green Bay's still going to want to try to run the football and to try to take some of that pressure off Jordan Love. So again, it comes down to the offensive line. Can they open up holes against a defense that has done a fairly good job at stopping the run? Now, do some of those numbers reflect that Minnesota has jumped out to a lead? and where teams are kind of abandoning the run a little bit? Probably. That probably does affect that. I mean, you look at the last 2 weeks, right? Probably didn't help Houston that they didn't have Joe Mixon last week. But they jumped out to leads, jumped out to a couple possessions, couple possession worth leads. So teams start to kind of get away from the run a little bit. Sure, it probably affected that. And that's where I think it's key for Green Bay to jump out to a lead here. So they're not playing from behind. So they don't have to sit there and try to throw it 40 times in this game. The way to do that, jump out to a lead, but have success running the football too. Have success running the football. But I think one of the biggest keys in this entire game is going to be Matt LaFleur versus Brian Flores. What is Matt LaFleur going to do differently that Kyle Shanahan couldn't do, that Bobby Slowick couldn't do? Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the 49ers, offensive play caller. Bobby Slowick, offense coordinator for the Texans. All three of those individuals come from the same tree. Come from the same offensive philosophy tree. Brian Flores has been chopping down those limbs. He chopped down a couple of those limbs from that tree these last couple of weeks. What does Matt LaFleur have planned that is different than his old boss and Bobby Slowick, who grew up in the same system? What can he do different? What can he do that was successful that the other two play callers couldn't do? This is a very unique chess match between these two guys in terms of game plans. What is Matt LaFleur going to do that those two couldn't do? And can he do it successfully? Can this Packers offense do it successfully? That's something I'm very anxious, curious, excited, nervous to see how it all plays out. Because Brian Flores has had the quote-unquote Shanahan-style offense, Shanahan system offense number for a little bit now. But Matt LaFleur has been doing a pretty darn good job if we go back to last year and, second half of last year and so far this year of coming up with some game plans and calling some plays and calling certain play packages. He's done a good job. He's done a really good job. Can he continue to do that? I'm excited to see that. I think it's going to be a huge chess piece here. Turnovers, I mean, a lot of the same keys to victory here, too, you can say for every week. Win the turnover battle. Every team wants to win the turnover battle, right? Turnover margins, they want to win that. You listen to, especially like a LaFleur, they win, and you watch those videos in the locker room, that's one of the things he always highlights, winning the turnover battle. But I think Green Bay, I don't want them, even if Jordan Love is back in this game, don't abandon everything that you did the last couple of weeks. Don't abandon that. Utilize some of that stuff. Utilize a lot of the misdirection. Utilize a lot of the motion. Don't let the defense dictate how you play offense. I want the Packers offense to make this Minnesota defense scramble, adjust. Let the offense dictate how the game is going to be played. So I still want them to try to be successful at running the football, still creating those misdirections, still moving a bunch of guys in motion, rotation, that sort of stuff, and still having success running that football. Jacobs, Manuel Wilson, that sort of stuff. And winning that time of possession. But I think a lot of that's going to help if Green Bay can jump out to a lead right away. If they can jump out to a lead instead of trying to play a little catch-up. All right, with all of that being said now, my official prediction for this game, Packers, Vikings, I'm going to operate under the assumption that Jordan Love will play in this game. And with that being said, 27-24, Braden Narveson hits a field goal to win it for the Packers. Packers improved to 3-1, 1-0 in the division. Minnesota suffers their first loss, and 0-1 in the division. That's the official prediction. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. A big thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. And if you got a couple seconds, if you could, give us a 5-star rating and a positive review so others can find the podcast. Until next time, I'm Dan Casper, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.